English learners, and welcome back to another great lesson with English Pod. My name is Marco.
And I'm Erica.
And today we're bringing you a great intermediate lesson with some really useful vocabulary.
Some vocabulary you can use to describe your job.
Yes, this is a really common situation when someone asks you what you do, and you have to tell them.
Exactly. So today's lesson is all about that.
So before we jump into our dialogue, let's start with our vocabulary preview.
Vocabulary preview.
We have two simple phrases today that you'll hear in our dialogue for our vocabulary preview. The first one is VP.
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 So the VP of a company is?
The vice president.
The vice president, exactly.
Yeah, simple little acronym. And the next word is Fortune 500 company.
Fortune 500 company.
Fortune 500 company.
So a Fortune 500 company is?
I'll let you explain.
Well, Fortune magazine ranks the 500 biggest companies in the US.
So a Fortune 500 company basically is?
One of the 500 biggest companies in the US.
Okay, that's simple.
Yep.
All right, well, with those words, it sounds like we're going to be talking to some important people today.
Yes, we are going to be talking to some important people. So let's listen to our dialogue for the first time. Now, it's going to be a little bit fast, but you don't have to worry about it.
Because we'll come back and explain all of the important vocabulary.
Oh, look. There's Caroline and her boyfriend. She's always going on about him at the office. Great, they saw us. They're coming this way.
Oh, man.
Jessica, Arthur, hi. I'd like you to meet my boyfriend, Greg. He's the VP of Quality and Safety for a top Fortune 500 food company.
Nice to meet you. This is my husband, Arthur.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello?
Caroline talks about you all the time. I guess you must be pretty busy at work.
Well, yeah, VP position is not easy, you know. I implement policies and procedures nationwide in various departments, as well as train junior managers in FDA and EPA regulations. I also have to oversee daily operations of our quality control for the entire East Coast. That alone means I have 1,500 employees under me.
Wow, yeah, that sounds exciting.
And what about you, Arthur? What do you do for a living?
Oh, I'm a...
All right, great music for our dialogue again, huh?
Chosen by?
By moi.
Of course.
Yeah, Top Gun is one of my all-time favorite movies. And Top Gun pilot, what a cool profession.
An excellent profession. Much cooler than being like
A
the VP.
Yeah, how boring is that?
Yeah. Anyway, this guy was a bit of a jerk, don't you think?
Yeah, you can tell a little bit of the sarcastic tone he had in his voice.
Definitely. But he did use some interesting phrases, and we can talk about those now.
Right, so let's take a look at language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
Our first word for language takeaways is implement.
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 Let's listen to some examples of this word to help us understand its meaning.
Example 1.
Our company has to implement this sales strategy.
Example 2.
Sarah will be responsible for implementing the plan.
Example 3.
I implemented several new policies.
Okay, great examples. And just in case, to implement means to?
Put into action.
Put into action. Great.
Exactly.
Our second word for language takeaway, policies.
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 So policies are basically rules and regulations
Exactly. Formal rules.
for a company or an organization.
Exactly.
Policies. Great.
Third word,
Oversee.
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 So when you oversee operations, it means
Like you watch it to make sure it's okay.
you supervise it.
This is an excellent word to use when you want to talk about your job responsibilities.
Right.
Oversee.
Great. And our last word for language takeaway, it's kind of tricky, so let's listen to how it was used in our dialogue.
That alone means I have 1,500 employees under me. That alone means I have 1,500 employees under me.
So this guy has 1,500 employees under him, meaning he supervises 1,500 employees.
Right, he manages 1,500 employees.
He must be a busy man.
Yes, for 1,500 employees. How many employees do you have under you, Erica?
2.
Yeah, not quite as much as 1,500.
Yeah, guess I'm not a VP right yet, hey?
Not yet, but you will.
Okay.
All right, so with this in mind, we are ready to listen to our dialogue for a second time, and this time it's going to be slower.
Oh, look, there's Caroline and her boyfriend. She's always going on about him at the office. Oh, great, they saw us. They're coming this way.
Oh, man.
Jessica, Arthur, hi. I'd like you to meet my boyfriend, Greg. He's the VP of Quality and Safety for a top Fortune 500 food company.
Nice to meet you. This is my husband, Arthur.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello?
Caroline talks about you all the time. I guess you must be pretty busy at work.
Well, yeah. A VP position is not easy, you know. I implement policies and procedures nationwide of various departments, as well as train junior managers in FDA and EPA regulations. I also have to oversee daily operations of our quality control for the entire East Coast. That alone means I have 1,500 employees under me.
Wow, yeah, that sounds exciting.
And what about you, Arthur? What do you do for a living?
Oh, I'm a Top Gun pilot.
Okay, great stuff. With this, now we can start with our Fluency Builder for today.
Fluency Builder.
We heard some excellent phrases in this dialogue, some phrases that sound really natural, hey?
Yes, especially the first one that we have today is whenever someone talks and talks and talks and continuously talks without stopping, you would say,
She's always going on about him at the office. She's always going on about him at the office.
This is a really natural way of saying keeps talking about.
right, keeps talking about him.
Yep. So we have a few examples of how this phrase works. Let's listen.
Example 1.
My boss is always going on about how we need to save money. It's all he talks about.
Example 2.
Gary is always going on about his kids. He's always talking about how smart they are.
Example 3.
My mom is always going on about how I should get married.
Okay, excellent. It's clear now.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on to our second phrase for today. And this is a great one to use whenever you meet someone for the first time.
Or when you start to talk to someone for the first time.
Great.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going?
So this is a really relaxed and natural way of saying, how are you?
How are you?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can just say, hey, how's it going?
Yep.
Great.
Really natural sounding.
Now, our third phrase is the most important one of our dialogue,
Yes.
and it's a really common situation.
When someone asks you about your job, they might say this.
Arthur, what do you do for a living? Arthur, what do you do for a living?
So this is a really great way of asking what work do you do or what is your job?
Yes. I know a lot of students sometimes say, what is your job?
Yeah, and that is, it's kind of correct, but not really.
It doesn't sound very natural.
Right.
So you want to use what do you do or
what do you do for a living?
Sounds great.
That's the way you ask someone what is their job.
And that's how you sound supernatural.
Okay, so we're ready now to listen to our dialogue a last time. And now you are ready to understand everything.
Oh, look. There's Caroline and her boyfriend. She's always going on about him at the office. Great, they saw us. They're coming this way.
Oh, man.
Jessica, Arthur, hi. I'd like you to meet my boyfriend, Greg. He's the VP of Quality and Safety for a top Fortune 500 food company.
Nice to meet you. This is my husband, Arthur.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello?
Caroline talks about you all the time. I guess you must be pretty busy at work.
Well, yeah, VP position is not easy, you know. I implement policies and procedures nationwide, various departments, as well as train junior managers in FDA and EPA regulations. I also have to oversee daily operations of our quality control for the entire East Coast. That alone means I have 1,500 employees under me.
Wow, yeah, that sounds exciting.
And what about you, Arthur? What do you do for a living?
Oh, I'm a top...
Okay, so I have a little challenge for our listeners today.
What is it?
2 challenges, actually.
Okay.
The first one, who performs the song that you heard, and what is the song called?
Okay, I don't know the answer, so I'm looking forward to seeing what users do.
And the second one is, what is the number 1 company in the Fortune 500?
Oh, I also don't know this answer.
2 great questions, so I expect to see your answers on the comments page, but also we want to know about your profession.
Yes, tell us about your job. Tell us what you do and use some of the great phrases you learned today to describe your answer.
Great. So we hope to see you there, but we're out of time now.
Thank you, Erica and Marco, for setting the stage with such great insights. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our podcast, where we dive deep into the English language and how to use it naturally in real-life situations. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that's essential whether you're at a networking event, a job interview, or even just chatting with new friends. And that's describing your job. This is one of those moments where many English learners freeze up. You want to explain your work, but you're unsure of the right vocabulary, how much detail to give, or how to sound confident. Don't worry, we've got you covered. By the end of this episode, you'll feel ready to describe your job in a clear and natural way.
Why it's important.
Before we dive into the vocabulary and examples, let's talk about why this is such an important skill. Think about it. When you meet someone new, one of the first questions they'll ask is, "So what do you do?" It's a natural way for people to get to know you. How you answer can set the tone for the conversation. If your response is vague or overly complicated, the other person might not know how to continue. But if you can describe your job clearly and confidently, it shows that you're articulate and self-assured. And it might even lead to more opportunities.
Essential vocabulary and phrases.
Let's start with some key vocabulary and phrases that you can use. These are words and expressions you'll often hear when people describe their jobs. Implement. This means to put something into action. For example, in my job, I implement new strategies to improve team performance. Oversee. This means to supervise or manage. For instance, I oversee the operations of 3 departments, ensuring everything runs smoothly. Policies. These are formal rules or guidelines. For example, I help develop company policies to ensure compliance with industry standards. Fortune 500 company. Fortune 500 company is one of the 500 largest companies in the United States, ranked by Fortune magazine. If you work for one, you might say, I work for a Fortune 500 company in the tech sector. Now, let's look at some common expressions for asking about someone's job. What do you do for a living? What's your job? What do you do? And here are some natural ways to respond. I'm a software engineer. I design and develop mobile apps. I'm in sales. I work with clients to find the best solutions for their needs. Notice how these responses are short, clear, and to the point. They tell the listener what you do without overwhelming them with details.
Practical tips for describing your job.
Let's talk about how you can describe your job effectively. Here are some tips. Be specific but not too technical. Instead of saying, I work in marketing, try, I develop social media campaigns to promote our brand. This gives more detail without being too complicated. Use action verbs. Action verbs make your description more dynamic. For example, I lead a team of designers. I manage client relationships. I coordinate logistics for international shipments. Highlight your achievements. If possible, mention something you're proud of. For example, last year I spearheaded a project that increased our customer retention rate by 25%. Tailor your description to the situation. If you're at a casual gathering, you might keep it simple. I'm a teacher. I work with high school students. But in a professional setting, you could add more detail. I'm an English teacher specializing in preparing high school students for their exams.
Common mistakes to avoid.
Now, let's talk about some common mistakes that learners make when describing their jobs. Being too vague. Saying, I work in IT doesn't tell the listener much. Instead, you could say, I work in IT specializing in network security. Using jargon, avoid technical terms that people outside your field won't understand. Instead of, I develop RESTful APIs, you could say, I create tools that help apps communicate with each other. Talking too much? Keep your response concise. If the listener wants more details, they'll ask.
Interactive practice.
Let's try a quick activity. Take a moment to think about your own job. How would you describe it in 1 or 2 sentences? Here's an example. I'm a project manager. I oversee the planning and execution of various projects to ensure they're completed on time and within budget. Now, your turn. Say it out loud. How does it sound?
Cultural insights.
One interesting cultural note. In some countries, it's common to go into great detail about your job when asked. In others, people prefer a brief answer. In English-speaking countries, a short and clear response is usually best, especially when you first meet someone.
Listener challenge.
Before we wrap up, I have a challenge for you. Think about how you would describe your job in English using the tips and vocabulary we've covered today. Write it down or record yourself saying it. Then share it with a friend or leave it in the comments. And if you're currently job hunting, try adapting your description for different roles. Practice makes perfect. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this episode and want to keep improving your English, make sure to subscribe to our channel. You'll get notified about all our new lessons packed with useful tips and vocabulary. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.